There we are. Right, well, so welcome to Wednesday night.
Wednesday night. Here we are, and you'll notice probably that we've got some guests here with us.
Better looking. It's going to help with our ratings and our reviews. So please,
definitely, give us a 5-star rating today.
Star
we need it.
Let's see. To get you started, we would love for everyone to fill out a connection card. And the way you get to the connection card is if you'll go to StuttgartHarvestChurch.com. There will be a box that pops up that says Online Worship Guide. Just click that. That's the same worship guide we use all week long, but on there is a connection card. So that's how we can get your private prayer requests and comments and things like that. So we would love to have that.
The other thing that you can connect with is the giving, our giving, online giving, which if you're comfortable worshiping through giving, that's great. We have an online giving that you can text to, I can't remember the number off the top of my head.
Well, you know what? I can't either, but we don't have that on the screen.
We don't have it on the screen, so we don't have to worry about it right
but
now.
we can, on the connection card page, if they go to the online worship guide, if they'll click that Give Now button, and that's my fault, because I told McKinley we didn't need that.
No, that's my fault for not checking in with you right there.
No, I made an assumption.
Well, okay.
My bad. My bad.
All right. So anyway, don't worry about that. Just click on the thing that's below it. And we are grateful, of course, for the way that you are supporting Stuttgart Harvest Church. We have an exciting night here. We're going to have a panel discussion, and we're going to just really get into different perspectives and different filters on the same topic that we talked about on Sunday, which was our second way to ruin your life, which is not learning from your past.
Exactly. So as we get into that, let's jump to this roll in, and then we'll be right back. Poof.
How to ruin your life in 4 steps.
Yes, 4 easy, simple steps.
Week 1, we talked about how driving life with your emotions and with your feelings and not putting God's truth and submission to Him and dependence upon Him.
Yeah.
That's a good way to run your life into a ditch.
Great memory, Cole.
Thank you very much. This past Sunday, we talked about the second way, which was really not learning from your past. And in fact, Harley, our bottom line statement.
It says, review your past, or, here's the option, relive your problems. And boy, I have done that in some areas of my life.
You more than me because you're older, but I'll catch up. Give me time and I'll get there.
No, I hope you never catch up to where I have been. But that's why we're really doing this week on this series, because yeah, we didn't mention this, but we can also learn from someone else's past.
Right, right. And that's really what we want to do tonight. We want to take the perspective of a couple of guys that we have a ton of confidence in and who are very connected here at Stuttgart Harvest Church and really kind of talk about this topic through their filter a little bit. And so we want to welcome Justin West and John Frazier. They are our guests tonight. And again, kind of to repeat that bottom line, review your past or relive your problems. Guys, when that bottom line kind of hits your ears, John, what is it that what comes to your mind? What's the first thought that you think of when you hear that bottom line statement of review your past or relive your problems?
Well, basically, if you don't look back and see where you've made failures, you can't improve your life. So you just keep repeating junk over and over again. We all have problems. We all make mistakes. But repeating mistakes is just, it's horrible. It
Right.
really is.
You kind of get into that.
You get into a rut.
Well, that's a good word, because as I think about it, and if we think about it in a circle, if we keep going back and hitting the same type of mistakes, we're making a circle rut. And the more you do that, the deeper those
that rut
ruts get,
goes.
and
Right.
the more difficult it becomes to get out of that rut. Someone described to me one time that what a rut is in life. They say it's just a grave with the ends knocked out. You just keep going, in kind of a circle of death.
Right.
Justin, any thoughts come to your mind when we think of review your past or relive your problems?
Yeah, I mean, I've been my whole life. I mean, you learn from your mistakes. I think it's how you react to those lessons that you learn is what is so important.
Yeah.
Because I think that you can take a mistake, you can make a mistake, and if you don't have a consequence there, you're going to continue to make that mistake, even if you know that it's wrong. If you continue to do that same thing until you have a really tough consequence, I think that you'll continue to make that mistake.
I think that's a good word too, a really tough consequence, because if it doesn't hurt bad enough, then we're not motivated to go back there and look at it.
Well, I think Justin makes a good point too, because to make a mistake, that's human.
Yeah.
We're going to make mistakes. We're going to miss the mark. We're going to do that. It's how do we respond to it?
Yeah.
What happens? Do we make the mistake and then just keep on doing the same thing, staying in that, like y'all talked about, that rut, getting it deeper and deeper, or do we learn from it? Do we grow from it? You know, I mean,
Yeah.
that's a big point, I think.
I would hate to say it's ever too late to learn from it, but I think the deeper that rut goes, the less likely we are to climb out of it.
Right.
Or if we do finally get so sick and tired of repeating that problem that we want to, then the climb out is more difficult.
Right.
You know, I've always talked, when I was teaching students, my thought was, if we can catch them in the 7th grade, 6th, 7th grade, before those things have become habits, then if we can make a course correction then, kind of like John Mark, you know, in what we talked about Sunday, something happened, he was a young man, and that course correction, we're assuming, happened quicker than the longer you wait, the more difficult.
and you know, John, I know for me, when I was teaching, this is something that I would always tell the kids, and I taught kind of that age that you guys you're talking about, Harley. I would tell them, look, guys, you're going to learn one way or the other. You're either going to learn the easy way, which the easy way is listening to wisdom, listening to advice, listening to an adult or a coach or a preacher or a teacher or a principal, or you're going to learn the hard way, which, like what Justin said, the hard way, the consequences, that tends to be the way that most of us learn.
Yeah.
You know,
Sometimes that's the better way to learn is the hard way.
it sometimes sticks, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It sticks real well. It
Well,
really does.
speaking of sticks, okay, and before we even get into this question, I want to make sure you understand we do not expect you to lay out your deepest, darkest secrets here, okay? We're not asking you to do that. But in your life, in your experience, Justin, can you think of maybe something that would be a good example of a time maybe where you did make a mistake, you didn't learn from it, you didn't review it and learn from it the way you should have, and as a result, you just found yourself right back in the same situation again because, again, you didn't learn from your past. Can you think of an example of that just off the top? Let me rephrase. Can you think of one example of that?
How much time do we got? But yes, I mean, I've like we've all said, we've all had problems. We've all done things wrong, and we've all learned lessons. And I think a big thing for me that I can look back on and that I've done a lot of is I used to get angry a lot easier than I do now. And I think I may have offended people, or I may have kept from making friends with people just because, used to somebody could say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing to me, and I would just, whatever came to my mind came out of my mouth. And I've learned a lot as I've gotten older and as my faith has gotten stronger, that you got to slow down and think a little bit, because
I'm smiling.
That was
because
probably
that was
yours,
me
right?
Too. Yeah, and not in my, not so far away, but I'm also smiling because Justin used to, one of his physical conditioning things was MMA stuff, and so Justin was
You really
big
didn't want to make
and
him mad.
intimidating.
He was intimidating walking in the room.
Yes,
he didn't
yes.
have to open his mouth.
Yes. So, yeah.
What about you, John? Anything that comes to mind?
Well, I mean, I suffered from anger myself. Just being honest about things, and being real judgmental about folks. Here the last few years, I've really learned that we don't know what circumstances people are having in their
That's
lives.
big. That's big.
It really is.
Yeah, that came up last
Yes, it
Wednesday,
did.
too.
Yes, it did.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you making a judgment on somebody over what's going on right now,
Yeah.
that's horrible.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's happened now.
What happened
You don't.
before?
Well,
Yeah.
I know, and that's something, I've been connected with church, I guess, as long as I can really remember. Man, and that's something, we've talked about it. You and I have talked about it.
Yeah,
that's something
we've
that,
had many conversations
man, I
over this.
struggled with. And I'm not saying that I don't still struggle with it. I don't want to make anybody think I've got this thing licked. Far from it. Oh, my goodness. But that's something I struggled with as I was getting older and kind of growing up a little bit. And really over the last 10 years or so that I feel like I've done better at was, being very – and the word judgmental is overused sometimes, I think. But that was me, and coming from my perspective, I would look – and you just don't know what people are going through. You don't know what their experience is.
You can't look through their eyes and see
Right.
what they're seeing.
It's the reason we have you guys up here. We
Right.
want that perspective.
Well, and judgmental is you're right. It's kind of a word that we use so often. So I think if we could think of that from the perspective of maybe just coming to a judgment very quickly.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And then holding on to that. So,
Right.
and we can do that with, that's a mistake I've made. I just think about my early days in ministry. Wow. Some conversations I had with students and my tone and oh goodness, I still have guilt. I've apologized probably, 15 times to them on Facebook Messenger. Some specific students that I had interactions with. And you would think I would have learned. I brought that right back into my family, did the same thing with my family. It took me a long, here's what it took. It took me having a major fall consequence in my own life before I finally realized what I was doing there. So I am better there. It took me a whole lot longer with anger. It came in my mind, and that fuse was short, and it came right out of my mouth. Or right through my thumbs.
That's something that I've noticed that I'm able to do now that I didn't do before is whenever I do, get angry, say with one of my children or my wife or family members, friends, anybody, it's easier for me to go back and apologize now because used to, I could fly off at the mouth and never think anything else about it.
Takes real humility, and you recognize it. And so I'm getting a little bit better. I was about there today with technology. Taylor was there.
Technology sometimes licks you, and all of us. When it doesn't work like it's supposed to.
Yeah.
But the cool thing, like Harley, like you said, Justin, you know you have that. Let me rephrase. We know that we have those flaws. We
yeah.
know that we have those
Still do,
weaknesses.
still do.
Still do.
Yes.
We know it, but like you said, you're working on it. You're trying through, as we talked about last week, through not only feeling but God's truth, submission, and dependence upon Him. Through those avenues, you're learning to kind of get a hold of that. We're learning to get a hold of that. So my next question then, and let's see, I'm going to throw this one to John. I think this one should start with you. What about some instance where the opposite, where you did learn from your past? An example maybe, or just something that you've experienced in your life where you did learn from your past, and as a result of that, you've kind of curtailed, I'm not saying stopped, but curtailed those mistakes.
Made progress.
And made progress in that journey.
Well, I know with my anger issues that I've had, even just driving down the road, you get behind somebody's just poking along, or somebody pulls out in front of you. I used to get so mad. I still do. I'm not gonna lie. I still do. But I start to think, well, you don't know what's on their mind today. You know, they may have just lost their job, or maybe they're just praying and poking along. But
so your response has changed.
So my response has definitely
what
changed.
you're doing with that anger
Right.
has changed.
How much
is
of that?
changing.
How much of that has come with? How much of that has come with growing up, age, wisdom, versus just, man, I've got to make a change here. I've got to do better.
I think the good Lord's changed me on that one because I tried to do it for years by myself and I fail. I don't know that age would ever improve on me on that one.
Right. Well, I know one for me. I remember, and those of us listening, or if you're watching right now, you may remember maybe a year ago or so, when the tree trimmers came into Stuttgart. You remember? And they just, took some chunks out of some trees, Within this past week, after what we've dealt with all the electricity, that made me so mad, and I got so upset because they just made one of my trees look so bad.
The only one
I had, and they made it look so bad, and I got so upset, and I was calling people. I'm going to tell you, everybody, that I called an email. I'm not going to do it because it's embarrassing. But, after last week, I look back and I go, you know what?
Okay.
They knew what they were doing. They did that because it would have been a lot worse had they not done what they did. So, man, calm down, Cole.
Yeah.
Same for you, Justin. Can you? What is an instance where you have learned from your past and you do feel like you are, again, as Harley said, making progress?
Oh well, like I said, it still happens all the time. But just recently, the past year or two, there's been times I'm in the trucking business now, and I'm talking to truck drivers every day and customers, and it gets a little crazy every now and then, trying to rustle the schedules around, and you just get a little uptight, I guess you could say. But you get truckers that'll call you in, and they can have an attitude with you because they're sitting somewhere, for instance, sitting in a mill for hours and hours and can't get dumped, and all their anger comes on me. Customers get mad at me. But anyway, there's been times where I've gotten into it with some of my drivers on the phone, and I've been able to come back and cool down and come back and apologize and say, just kind of let them know, hey man, we're doing all we can. This is just it's part of the business, and tell them that I am sorry, that they're sitting there, even though there's not much I can do about it. But I've actually built some pretty good relationships with a few of the guys that 5-10 years ago, I probably would have told them, to hit the road or to go haul somewhere else. Where now these guys will call me even on days they're not working, just to chat a little bit. You know? So that's one of the things that I've learned. Like I said, is keeping relationships, building relationships. I always tell my kids, you can't have too many friends.
No doubt.
One day you may be somewhere, and one of those people that you talk bad to may be coming by, and you may need help fixing a flat or something like that. So you cannot have too many friends, in my opinion.
I know for me, when the moments that I forget about what I've learned from my past, it happens, I've noticed for me, more frequently when I have an extended period of time when I am not on a personal growth habit. If I have neglected what I call a quiet time, which is just reserving space in my day to talk to God and kind of pour it out and lay it out, and then pull from God and His truth, from His Word. And when I haven't done that, and I haven't done it consistently, I struggle more with going back into those old habits and those patterns. I'm stronger when I've been in the Word.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I tell friends of mine, I've had some guys that haul through me, and they come up and they say, "Man, you just seem different lately." I mean, the last year or so, I've had people come up and say, "You don't get mad anymore," and that's what I tell them. I try to tell them, man, the more you get in the Word, and you recognize sin, and you recognize the things that you've done, and the way that you acted, and you recognize that a lot of times before it even happens. I can picture something in my mind about to happen, and I can already kind of, like I said, I still mess up, but I know what I'm supposed to do, what's the right thing to do, because I try to get in the Word and stay in the Word, and just recognize sin and recognize what's wrong and what's right.
And recognize it quicker.
Right.
I mean, because there's so much we already know, but when we've been in the Word, I feel like we recognize it quicker, and we can stop it sooner, and we can be humble and jump back and make it right sooner.
And I'm just like you, Harley. When I fall the most, and the most often, is when I find myself in a rush, just stressed, rushing around, not, again, just taking the time, not, as we've talked about many times, and John, you can relate to this, I don't know, but not saying, you know what, I don't care what's going on around me. I'm going to take a little bit of time, because when I don't, like what Justin said, I'm just a little bit edgier. I'm just a little bit more quick to respond. I'm a little bit quicker to kind of jump back down in that rut. You know what I mean?
I'm a lot more prone to it.
Right.
I do know that. And my wife can vouch for it. If I'm on the edge, you really don't want to mess with me, because I say things I don't mean.
Yeah. When you're on edge, are you saying like under stress?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Just want to.
And so it's when we're under stress, even though it seems like for whatever reason, it's when, I know in my life, when I'm under stress is when I am the least likely to do these things we're talking about. Get in the Word, listen to a podcast, watch get something that is going to pump life into me. That's the time I'm least likely to do it, when it's the time I need to do it the most.
Goes back to last week.
Yeah.
And thinking about Jesus in the garden, and that example of, I agree with what you said, that there was probably no one has been under more duress than Jesus was facing in that moment. And there's this real physical condition. It's rare, but it can happen, where you're under such distress that some of your blood vessels can break, and you can appear to be sweating blood. And that's the kind of duress Jesus was under, and he did not just drive that life with one hand.
Because if he would have, even Jesus in that moment, in his humanity, he would have failed.
Yeah.
He would have faltered, but he didn't do that. He went right back. It took him 3 trips, but he did it.
Yeah.
I
think that's...
And I can't even do one sometimes,
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty sad.
Yeah.
That's real sad.
And I love that point last week. It took 3 trips. That was not sin. Jesus was sinless.
That was Jesus putting that second hand on the wheel, saying, I'm dependent and submissive to you, and I can't do this alone.
Right.
And man, when I need it the most, that's when I take off the most, as opposed to staying
That's
tight.
when I one-hand it.
Yeah.
And in doing so, when I do that, then we go to this week that we're in right now,
Circle,
and I repeat.
do it again. Get the
that
rut deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great step. When we do that, we just keep, I know I do it. You know what I mean? I know I do it. And yet, when times get tough, or whatever the case may be, I don't feel good, I'm dealing, whatever the case may be, whether it be in a relationship, at work, whatever, I fall right back in that same trap, and boom, here we are. I'm back there again. So
as we get going, I'm going to have the guys just keep us informed on our time, because I messed up our timer a minute ago. So if someone will just come over here and let us know as we're continuing.
So this question, I guess, I think this is a good, not a summation, but it is a good question. So, and I'll give this one to Justin first. So, and I know Harley wants to jump in on this one as well. So, do you ever wonder or wish that the person that you are now, and again, not that we've made it, we're on a journey, but the person that you are now, that is growing and, taking steps sometimes minute by minute with Jesus, do you wish that that person now could go back to the person we were and say, hey, listen to me. I can save you a whole lot of problems. Just listen to me. I can learn from your past. Learn from your mistakes. You ever, what would you say to yourself, I guess is what I'm asking.
Oh, man. I'd need a lot more time. But, yeah, I mean, if I could go back, I mean, there's even several things that we haven't even talked about tonight on this, that bigger mistakes that I've made and bigger challenges that I've been through, that I could go back and change a lot of things in my life. But, I mean, I do feel like I've learned a lot through my mistakes, but it's also because I've been able to learn how to deal with those mistakes and correct those mistakes. But yes, absolutely. I mean, if I could go back, I would be where I am today. Years and years and years ago is where I'd like to go back to. But yeah, like I said, now I just kind of hope I can lead my kids. Maybe that's something that's always tried to be strong in my willpower. I guess I just want to teach my kids from my mistakes. Hopefully they don't make the same mistakes that I make, but I know they're gonna make mistakes. But just
learn from them.
Right,
grow.
Learn from them.
Yeah, every day, minute by minute.
And a big thing, we don't want our kids to make those big life-altering mistakes that we have made.
Right.
And
so, John, I know for you, I'm going to ask the question a little different. Okay, I know you're one of our small group leaders, and you are leading a group called Financial Peace University with Dave Ramsey.
Yes, sir.
And so I'm going to ask that question from the perspective that I would answer it, which is, if I could look back 15 years ago when I was just, 20 years ago when I was just starting out of college, and look at some of the financial stupid decisions that I made and think about where I would be today if I were making the same decisions then that I am now. Wow, what a difference it would make in my life. Kind of talk from that perspective.
It would be a world of difference in my life.
Yeah.
I know that personally. Actually, when you sent me the questions last night,
that's where your mind went.
That's where I went.
Financial peace, baby.
Me and Melissa both talked it over, and I said, well, I'm just not going to plug that, but I have it in my pocket. I wrote it out.
Right.
I won't lie. Golly, the financial mistakes I've made in my life have been just unbelievable. My world would be so much different, and if I would have just come to the realization that I'm a steward, this isn't mine.
Right.
This isn't mine. This is God's. He's given it to me for me to manage. Just like the landowner gave the pieces of gold or silver to his stewards for them to take care of in the Bible. Had I managed it well, I sure wouldn't be struggling like I have in the last couple of years. Y'all know.
Right.
I mean,
Sure. Yeah.
We've been through a major financial fall in the last few years. But God's will, we've come back.
yeah.
And you don't want to get back in that rut again. Let's learn from those mistakes.
Here we go. I'm going to make this statement right here. I am not going back there. We have vowed that we will help people every year with their finances. If they need it, if they'll come to us, we will do it in our small group.
Right. Well, guys, we are so grateful that you guys have given us this perspective and this filter on a somewhat difficult topic. I'm reminded, Solomon, arguably the wisest man that ever lived, the entire chapter, Proverbs chapter 1, it was nothing but Solomon saying to his son, his children, guys, listen to me. Learn these things. Grow. Learn from your mistakes. Wisdom, wisdom, wisdom. In fact, we picked a couple out. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 5, Solomon says, let the wise hear and increase in learning, and the one who understands obtain guidance. And that's what we're here doing is, guys, we've made so many mistakes. Solomon, it's almost like he's saying, son, I've made a lot of mistakes. Learn from me. Don't repeat my mistakes. And then again in Proverbs 1, 8 through 9, hear, my son, your father's instruction, and forsake not your mother's teaching, for they are a graceful garland for your head and pendants for your neck. Again, Solomon saying, son, if you'll just learn from my mistakes as much as yours, I promise you it'll go so much better for you. And we all, at the end of the day, Harley, we've all got a choice to make. We've all got a choice to make. We can either live like a child when we make a mistake, blame the other person, live like a fool, as Solomon says in Proverbs chapter 1, or we can choose to live like an adult and evaluate our mistakes, learn from our mistakes, grow, change, just as these guys are talking about, seek wisdom, and ask ourselves a question. What didn't work? And what's the wise thing for me to do now as a result of that?
Right. And I guess with that, our time is up. And so we just simply want to say to our friends, we are so ready to see you guys. But until then, we will see you Thursday night and then again
Sunday morning.
on Sunday morning at
That's right.
10:30. So from here, we just simply say goodbye.